Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is so exciting to be with all of you today. Um, Thank you for coming together for our report back for the Fall Reset Sprint. We have so many members of our community here, which is fantastic, including some thought leaders who are here as special guests. Thank you, Matt and Jen and Crystal. So excited to have you be part of today's session. We've got an amazing group of cohort participants who are going to be sharing their personal journey as they come to the end of this 6-week sprint. We've got Marie, our CEO and co-founder of AETHEON, who will be wrapping up today's session. And we have Julia and James, who have facilitated everyone through the journey. So it has been an incredible few weeks. We have such a diverse group who's been part of this sprint, from all across Canada to the east coast of Canada through to Cameroon. So it is exciting seeing this diverse group of people, backgrounds, perspectives all coming together to be able uh, to really reach what you'll see today. I'm Gina Genero, and I am the Chief Skills and Innovation Officer and the a co-founder here at AETHEON. And so I am here to really welcome and get this journey kicked off as we think about all of the amazing pieces that have come into the session, the energy, the commitment. It's an exciting day. One of the reasons that we want to celebrate this social learning journey is that it actually has the ability to make a much greater impact than other types of learning. So as we focus in on skill development and we really focus on helping people elevate themselves, social learning can actually have a 75-to-1 ROI over other types of learning. So what it does is it helps people who are building skills be able to apply them in very unique ways and be supported by an entire community. And that's part of the magic that makes these kind of sprints really come to life. The journey that folks have been on it's been both a group journey and a personal journey. So if you think about the focus on that each of us has on our own development, this journey has enabled everyone in the cohort group to be able to focus in on a skill that matters most to them, the development that matters most to them, and really being able to embrace that with full support of the group and being able to support each other at each step along the journey. So I want to congratulate all of you who have been part of this group, because you really have come together and it really has been a personal experience in a social setting. And that's really where we're seeing some of these incredible impacts that are coming through that we'll hear about today. So, as we think about the experience, one of the things that people have been doing in addition to capturing that skill they want to focus on is being able to go through an experience that allowed them to understand themselves and their goals, be able to choose one key skill that really unlocks a bunch of other experiences and opportunities for them, experimenting and strengthening skills in action, and then being able to develop individual and collective insights. So I want to thank you, everyone who participated, for doing exactly that. And we saw such a great energy as you were embracing that. The two folks who were really at the lead when it came to running through the spread are Julia and James, who have been working with the group for the last 6 weeks. So I would love to turn it over to Julia and James to be able to tell us more about the experience and to be able to lead us through the information sharing as all of you on the call who are part of the experience share your own personal journey. Julia, James, over to you.
Hi. Well, James and I are co-facilitators, and we have an idea about how to begin. Would you like me to start, James?
Yeah, please.
Okay, awesome. We had two aspects of this journey, of this sprint cohort. One was the personal journey that individuals took, and then the other was the group journey. And I'm going to speak more to the personal journey. We had the amazing opportunity to use our beta skills explorer tool, which took people's resumes or LinkedIn profiles and parsed them out into the skills and the proficiencies based on what the resumes entailed, what they had, and also the skills taxonomy and all kinds of other magic stuff that Gina has figured out, and Mark, our co-founder. What we found from the Skills Explorer was really interesting. We used it to help not only deepen and figure out what their keystone skills should be for the journey, but also to give people an idea of how are they being perceived out in the work world. And several of the participants in our cohort were seeking jobs. They had either experienced a layoff or they were later in their careers trying to transition to something new. So the Skills Explorer results were really informative in terms of validating, are these the skills I have? Are they at the level I think I have them at? And maybe am I underselling myself? Am I maybe being a little bit too humble, or is there anything missing? And by and large, we found that the Skills Explorer, the skills represented, showed a story of the past, which makes sense because the resume is generally a reflective of what happened before. But it also gave people the perspective that they could also tell a new story with their skills, and they could figure out where their gaps are, or they could emphasize different skills in order to reach into different jobs that they want to transition into. So it was an amazing tool. Gave us a lot of information. I think there was only one person who really felt that their skills were a match for where they were. So I think the takeaway was brag a little more. We also had one-on-one coaching sessions. I'm a leadership coach, and I had some really good time with each of the participants, going a little bit deeper on their journey. What is it that they want to reset, and why? Should their keystone skill be? And what are the different aspects of that, and how could that shape their group journey? And some themes emerged in the one-on-one coaching as well. One is that the modern job search is very dehumanizing. It really gives you a punch in the gut in terms of your confidence. That was a universal theme. Also, crafting something new in your life really requires intention and structure. And when you don't have the external structure of a job, it's really difficult to manifest and muster up the internal structure and direction. So that's why this journey together, this group's learning journey and social transformation journey was so helpful, because the participants got to support one another and learn from one another. And I will let James speak to that as well. Let me just see if there's any other themes. I think a final theme is, the participants in the cohort, the sprinters, really went so deep within themselves. And I think an overall universal theme was to define yourself from within, internally, instead of externally. That's really the key to change, is really getting clear on who am I now, what's important to me, and what are my unique talents, versus what job is out there and how can I fit myself into that job. So those are some of the key takeaways, and I'll let James fill in a little bit more color.
Thanks, Julia. So I think about it like the way these participants experience the cohort. They have been given some incredible tools from AETHEON, from Julia and the one-on-ones. And if you've ever tried to build something yourself, it can feel good, and it can also be incredibly frustrating. And when you come together with other people, when other people support your journey, you can do so much more with that. And so the social learning part of the sprint was all about 1 hour a week with this cohort, intimate space to uncover the things that maybe they'd seen in their Skills Explorer results, or maybe they talked to Julie about the keystone skill that they targeted, and talk through what they've been engaging with in and outside of our time together to make sense of what it meant to even take on a skill and develop a skill, and how to select a keystone skill that was right for them in their particular moment in time and their needs. And what we got to see was a very beautiful journey, learning together through the course of these very fast 6 weeks. And there were two intended outcomes at the end. The first, of course, was developing this keystone skill and seeing progress there. And the second, as we had premised, was to create a cohort guidebook of how to engage in skills development. As this journey progressed, what we saw from individuals is that it was a very personal experience, even in the social space of our cohort. And what we metaphorically moved towards is a more of a logbook along the journey. So if you're taking a hike on the mountains, you write along the journey what your experience is like. And we felt like bringing those pieces together to represent our cohort for their stories was the best way to give a leave behind for the journey that they had experienced with us. So what we're going to spend the next chunk of time doing is showcasing the journeys as our participants had given to us their experience. We have some folks who are here live. And then because it's Thanksgiving week, there are a bunch of folks who are traveling. So Julia and I are going to do our best to represent their stories from what they've shared with us to still bring their journeys to life. And we will start with Kevin.
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin. I am so stoked to join this sprint. It's week 1. I'm not exactly sure where we're going, but I'm looking forward to finding out. All right, it's week 2. I met some of the people I'm sprinting with. I'm super excited on furthering this community. I'm glad we're all showing up. We're still not super clear like where we're sprinting, but a lot of people are eager, and it's cool to feel like we're all in this together. All right, we're at week 3 of the sprint. I think I'm finding my path. I think other people are still looking for the path to sprint on, but my keystone skill is discipline. I have that clarity, and we're doing a skills assessment of an evaluator, so hopefully my run technique will get a little better. It's week 4, definitely on the path. I'm pretty clear on why discipline matters to me, what discipline is, and I'm looking forward to meeting with Julia to find out a little bit more of how I can take action on it and build this skill of skill building, but we're picking up pace. It's day 5, we're picking up momentum, we're running with other people, we're all clear and confident on where we're going, and it feels good to share the momentum and the journey with others. I've been time blocking on Sundays and honoring that time block. I have a bunch of resources on how I can act on being more disciplined in my life, and I'm hopeful. I mean, the sun is out in Seattle, so you gotta be hopeful. Well, week 6, tired, but I feel great. It's that post-run high that you get, and I took my own path for a little while, and it feels right. And I know this sprint, this run is never ending, but in a really tangible way, I've made progress. We're in a different spot, and I'm excited for you to do the same.
Amazing. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for documenting the journey along the way. And I love the enthusiasm and the insights that you shared. Tell us a little bit more about your journey, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. It's been really great to connect with people offline. I feel like that was one of the things I didn't fully expect is like I've made a lot of new friends just outside of the space, like getting coffee with people and having conversations on LinkedIn and a lot more virtual chats. So that was like something additional that really delighted me was feeling that community there and talking to people about how you can reinforce some of the learning, but also just be there for others in their time of need. Like this middle point is where a lot of people are. And listening is like my honor. So that's been really fun. As far as my own journey, like there are some times in life where like you look at your path and you're kind of like, just like, how did I get there? And like, it couldn't have happened any other way, that I'm meant to be at this milestone. That discipline was something that I really like needed to focus on at this point in my life. And I have this feeling of like looking back in 3 years and being like, wow, that was like a really critical moment where I like defined it, but then I went to go get it. And I'm pretty good at juggling a lot of things. But I know that like to get to my layers of being and my layers of doing, that I want to be present in my life while achieving a lot, that I need to be disciplined. So it was truly a gift. to have the community aspect, the knowledge aspect, and the accountability to show up every Tuesday morning. Like we went 6 for 6, which felt great. To prioritize this, even when I was sick, even when I was driving, even when stuff come up, yeah, like we made it a priority because it is, and I think it aligns with that plan of like being disciplined and prioritizing the things that matter in your life. So yeah, thank you
That's
all. It
fantastic.
means a lot.
Thank you, Kim. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah,
You
please.
talked in your journey in the early weeks about still figuring it out, and I think that's something that's really true for social learning, where it starts out a little fuzzy and it gets clearer over time. How did you find that part of the experience?
Oh man. I benefit from a lot of structure. I'm like a pretty out of the box person already. So I feel like I will take my freedom with it and kind of run my own way anyways. But it was like so undefined. Like I felt like I was just like a puddle of water with no channels to go in anywhere. um, and it brought me like I'm always going to be completely honest with y'all. It brought me a little bit of frustration at the start of I was just like, what are we doing? Like, these are stack days, and I'm having, an hour, 2 hours in the first 2 weeks just kind of chatting. And I think I learned, like, yeah, that was the purpose, is like, we're all defining this together, and that it was meant to be like time just like connecting and figuring this out. But I think I would have benefited from like more direction from the start, this being like the first sprint, and then us like allowing more flexibility in further sprints or like throughout the journey. But I get, like, we had the open landscape, and that's why I wanted that to shine through in my videos. Like, I no one knows where we're running, and it's like when we ask, they're like, anywhere you want, and you're like, anywhere, and you're like, anywhere you want, and you're like, but you have a recommendation on where you? No, just start going. And so we just start walking, and we figured it out. And I think it was a broader lesson of to be in flow, is to kind of let go and to surrender to some stuff and let it not be so corporate and agenda focused, and has to be maximized and optimized. And I was just like, you know what? I need to take a deep breath. I need to just relax. I need to find that like this pace is going to work for me, and we're going to make the most of it. And then it came to like, all right, we got it going. We got clarity, and now I need to be accountable for doing the work. And that's still kind of where I'm at. But yeah, thanks for your question.
That's always one of the most interesting parts of the sprint, is where you first go broad and really need to be able to define it together to come back in. So thank you for sharing that,
Absolutely.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to turn it over to James to be able to share the insights from Carolyn.
Oh, I like that guy.
I'm glad you do. We can go to Carolyn's slide, Gina.
Yep.
Sorry, no, you're mid sip. Okay, so Carolyn joined our cohort after experiencing a layoff, and she'd been at the company for more than 20 years and was experiencing the frustrations and tension that so many others are feeling right now. To say Carolyn is organized might be an understatement. It was clear from our time together that structure is important to her, both in and out of her professional career. So it's not entirely surprising to me that during our fall reset sprint, she started by setting a goal to create time-based learning objectives to generate momentum for herself. Carolyn broke down her learning journey into 3 phases, covering our time in the sprint and beyond. It started with what she called an internal architecture that she wanted to shift, rebuilding her identity arc. Carolyn writes, I was stuck because I'm waiting for a version of myself to reappear. Phase 1 of her reinvention plan focused on stabilization in her first few weeks. This meant getting comfortable with moving forward even when there wasn't structure or meeting, or taking action even if it meant the results were imperfect. Phase 2 of her plan centered on building, increasing the scope, visibility, and leverage of her own narrative that positioned her within a new definition of leadership. She utilized Skills Explorer to assess her skills and proficiency levels. She met one-on-one with Julia, made time for self-reflection and daily meditation, and worked on her critical thinking keystone skill through all parts of the AETHEON community. And now in phase 3, it's all about what happens next, elevating, in her words. The commitment she made during our live session was to seek out roles that she would have previously self-selected out of and to look for opportunities that have a different scope than what she's done in the past. Hey, Carolyn, great job in keeping the momentum for yourself.
Fantastic. Yeah, Carolyn has been such a great member of the community. Thank you so much, James, for sharing Carolyn's insights. And we've got insights from Z that Julia will share.
Yes. Let me get my notes so I cover everything. So Z is a younger professional, not an oldie like myself. And she was part of a layoff situation as well, and in the job search. And like many of our participants, just feeling the commonality of her confidence taking a hit, and just wanting some support and camaraderie around that. And yeah, so Z's journey, Z did what she called a journey of stepping stones. And you can see from this graphic that she generated from ChatGPT that first it began with identifying the blocker. Her keystone skill was confidence, and she realized that she lacked confidence in herself, in her skills, and most of all in her hopes, and what is possible. From the sprint, from meeting with others and sharing, she got a suggestion, and this is what led to step 2 in her stepping stones, was to break the journey down into smaller pieces. So she asked herself, what makes somebody confident? And she sort of deconstructed confidence to allow herself to focus on thoughts and create action steps. So not just the big overall umbrella of confidence, but really making it more specific. And I think what she learned at an early point and talked about in the group is that momentum itself creates confidence. So taking action is a really important part of that journey. So that led to action step 3, where she created a vision of herself as a confident leader. And that's what really came out in the coaching. It's not just about getting a job. It's about who am I as a leader 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And I think she was really able to make a connection with her values and who she wants to be as a leader and who she aspires to be. So that was a really important step. That led to step 4, which was the learning strategy. And she figured out that she wanted to go on a reading journey. So she crafted a really cool ChatGPT prompt, which you guys can find in her slides, and she generated a 4-phase reading list for her reading journey. Phase 1 is about self, identity, voice, and emotional leadership, with all the accompanying books to support that. Phase 2 is about building teams and cultures that thrive. That's super important, is this culture that thrives that she creates. Phase 3 of her reading journey is about systems leadership and visionary thinking. And phase 4 is really about legacy, moral voice, and enduring vision. So I just see that as an incredibly balanced vision for learning. And I would love to hear her report back after she reads all those books and tell us what she learned. Finally, she was very generous to give us some advice and guidance to future sprinters. So there are 4 tips. The first is you will feel lost at first. So just be careful. Like don't worry about that. Second is be open and curious. Don't get locked into anything too soon. The third is to attend the sprint sessions. So it seems like she got a lot of value out of the group work in terms of influencing her own journey. And finally, in terms of creating structure for herself, she recommends creating time blocks on your schedule to make sure you create time for this new vision that's being birthed. And I do want to say that Z was just such a dedicated participant. She came with so much vulnerability and consistency and support for others. And she really added a lot to our group.
Amazing. Thank you, Julia. And thank you for sharing Z's journey. Wondering if we can turn it over to Jessica. Jessica, do you want to share your journey with us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I related a lot to what Kevin shared in the very beginning. I actually come from a background of working in an environment that is literally all about learning. And so for me, I was accustomed to very structured courses, very structured learning paths. And I've also, taken tons of different courses out there. And I'd never really done anything quite like this, where there's no real structure. Like you have the meetings, but you're kind of just led to choose what works for you. And I kind of floundered a little bit in the beginning. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I need like, tell me what to do and I will do it. And so I struggled initially. And then I kind of, as I was going through the sessions and just kind of like trying to reflect on like, I gotta pick something. I gotta figure this out because like we're almost halfway through and I haven't found my way. And so it kind of like started to click in. It's like, this is your journey. Nobody has your life. Nobody has your experience. Nobody has your nervous system, and like nobody has your purpose and your mission and your drive. And so this container, it asks you to pick your own path. And that is the journey. That is what this is all about, is trying to figure out what is right for you in this moment, in your journey, in your development. And so I started to think about this conceptually, and I use AI, and so for me I had found this AI prompt that was incredibly powerful. And what it does is it asks the AI that you are using. For me it's ChatGPT, but would work with any AI tool. And the purpose of this prompt is to get it to identify your blind spots. There's this quote I love. Somebody said this recently: it's hard to read the ingredients on the bottle when you're inside the bottle. And it's like that concept of like you can't see your own patterns sometimes because you have blind spots. And so this prompt was an invitation for ChatGPT to tell me the things that maybe I can't see from what it's noticing in my writing patterns, in the things that I'm sharing. And that was the beginning of me figuring out what my keystone skill was going to be. I had like a list of 3 or 4 that I'm like, this could be it. This might make sense. So what I did was, after I had gotten the feedback from that prompt, I took it a step deeper and I asked it to identify, I explained what I was doing with this sprint, and I talked about the skills that I was thinking about. And I said, based off of all of the feedback that you just shared with me about my blind spots and my challenges and where I have growth opportunities, what do you think would be the most aligned next step for me? And that's how I landed on adaptability and resilience for my keystone skill. So for my journey, I am entering a new phase of my life, solo entrepreneurship. And while I have, done business related things in the past, I've always had a job also. So I've never been like fully focused as a solo entrepreneur. So for me, this sprint and this keystone skill specifically was a way for me to expand my capacity to be able to hold more, because this experience is bringing new levels of stress and new levels of all kinds of, feelings and things that I couldn't ever have anticipated. And so it's calling a new version of me forward. So that was why I went with adaptability and resilience. And I started the process by taking some assessments, skill benchmark assessments, to identify my level of proficiency. I found that really interesting because I scored really high on both. And so what that informed me was, I know these concepts conceptually, but it became evident that in all of the, the chaos of trying to start and launch a business this year, I had let go of a lot of the practices and the daily rituals that made me feel grounded and like kept me being the most adaptable and resilient human that I could be. And so that was my kind of like aha moment, to be like, okay, so for me, this is about getting back to those things. Like for me, it's like the meditation, the workouts, the mindfulness, journaling, like all of those kinds of things that just helps me be present with me, so that I can use my own intuition and stop relying on external forces. So that was the journey for me. I think in terms of like what I could share for other participants, is it absolutely is beneficial joining those sprint calls. There's a lot of nuance that you kind of realize about your own skills as you listen to other people. They all intersect. Like we were all on our own journeys, but as I was listening to people talk about discipline or talk about critical thinking or talk about any of the other skills, like confidence, what came up a lot, they all intersected in different ways, and you realize that like all of the skills build upon one another. So there was like a lot of aha moments in the conversation. And yeah, the experience was beautiful. I think there were bumps along the road as I was trying to like navigate and figure everything out as a person who also enjoys structure. But I think the lack of structure kind of forced me into a space where I had to take ownership, and I think that's exactly what I needed.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Such a fantastic journey. How are you going to continue to keep it up, to keep it going as you're wrapping up this sprint?
Yeah. So I've actually like I've started a journaling practice so that I can hold myself accountable for that. I've started to for me, like it actually this weekend was a big part of it. There was a Mind Valley Spiritual Summit that I attended, and that was like a really big commitment because I gave up my weekend to jump into that session. But it was really powerful for me to experience that, and it was like the kind of like the reset that I needed. And so now this week I've started doing like the Mind Valley quests, the meditations, like I've started to implement those little chunks and gradually shift back into the state that I used to have where I was doing those things consistently and prioritizing them, and when I just felt stronger. So for me, this sprint was like the reset button. And then now from here, it's like, okay, now that I've started to implement these things, it's about the consistency and I guess the discipline of actually like doing them and sticking with them moving forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jessica. Um,
No problem.
James, you're going to share the insights from Courtney next.
Yep, that's me. In her own words, Courtney joined the Fall Reset after spending months getting nowhere with a job search. With a tenured background in marketing, she found that her client service skills and the strategies she'd built up over the years weren't having the same impact, largely in her mind due to shifts in technology. And she realized she needed new skills, knowledge, and perspective to be more competitive and achieve what she wanted to in her work. She also realized that her resume didn't reflect who she really was and wasn't telling the story of the impact she could make in her work. In some ways, we see Courtney as a perfect model for the individual potential that Atheon can help unlock. She engaged in and completed both the Flourishing Bootcamp and AI Academy, which is not an easy feat, and combined the learnings from those programs with the results from her Skills Explorer assessment to completely reframe her resume. She highlighted things that were missing: her ability to problem solve, to manage time, to engage with curiosity, adaptability, and empathy, with special attention to the soft skills that make her unique. But more than that, she fundamentally changed her job search to reflect values and traits that were truly her. Like Carolyn, Courtney chose critical thinking as her keystone skill and actively strengthened it through Atheon's programs and our group sessions together. And she restarted her job search, equipped with that hard fought knowledge and refocused intent. And we're happy to share that Courtney isn't here because she found a role in an organization that reflects her own desires, doing work that lets her shine. And her leave behind is a succinct, organized slide deck that I know anyone watching will appreciate. Congrats, Courtney.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, Courtney has been so deeply involved in the community. Thanks so much, James, for sharing your story. Julia, can you share insights from Carrie?
Yes, I can. Well, Carrie, I would say represents potentially the most deeply personal journey and journey of deep inner work, which is not to diminish anybody else's inner work in their journey. Carrie is a senior finance professional in finance. He had spent many decades honing his craft and being a really strong worker and executive in finance, and he found himself out of work. And one thing right off the bat, he knew that confidence was the skill he wanted to build. He found the job search really dehumanizing, like as we've said before, not really, not even getting to the table for interviews that should be easy for someone at his level. And what he realized through the coaching and through the deeper conversations was that so much of his identity was put inside of his work container. And when the work was gone, who am I? Who am I at all? Like if I don't have work to define me, who am I? So that put him on a journey of thinking about identity, thinking about confidence. Is confidence something that only extroverted people have? Is it something that introverts have? Different aspects and flavors of confidence. I think he made an assumption that his introverted nature means he wasn't confident, but then we realized, oh, well, maybe him along with the group was what I mean by we. Maybe the confidence is more about something else. So the let's see. I'm going to look at my notes because he had his artifact was a personal letter that I pulled pieces from. I think in the journey he realized that it really wasn't about finding new employment. It was really about creating his new identity in this phase of his life. So who is he? What's important to me, and maybe not putting all of his identity eggs in the employment basket. So he wrote a beautiful letter to himself as an artifact, and I'd love to just read a few highlights about commitments that he's making to himself, and I'm going to say them in his words. He is committing to trying new things simply because they interest me, choosing discomfort when it expands me. So not being uncomfortable just to be uncomfortable, but when it's going to lead to growth. Interrupting old patterns, a commitment to speaking to myself with the respect that I deserve, a commitment to giving myself structured accountability, as well as freedom to explore. That was something that we talked about. And really being kind and holding space for progress and not necessarily perfection. So I really think Carrie had a sort of a transformative journey with this group and in this process. And I'd love to see where it takes him, because I really do feel intuitively that it's just the beginning for him.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. I appreciate you sharing Carrie's letter to himself and his insights. Yeah. Thank you. Wayne, can you share your insights, please?
Yeah, so I was wondering what image would come up here. So yeah, I wrote a sort of a scientific style paper, which was a challenge to myself, given that I was a scientist millions of years ago, and sort of talking through my journey. And so early on, I identified my keys. I played with few different keystone skills, but one thing I wanted to do was get better at up leveling the people on my team. And I'm in a leadership role, and I really want to make sure my team is performing the best that it can. And I'm really good at the tactical stuff. I'm really good at identifying and solving problems. With a high performing team, the people aren't problems to solve, right? And so it becomes a different type of thinking. And digging into that and trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I actually going to develop that skill? I realized that I've gotten to a point in my career where just learning from others at work is just not working anymore. And because there's just not that many of us in leadership roles at the company that I'm at, and even at a lot of companies. And so, back when I was in IC, it was easy to learn from the people around you because you had different people in different stages of their career, and there was a lot of modeling going on. I'm at a point now where that's just not working. And so that led me to say, okay, well, I should probably join some communities in my profession with others like me, and to try to learn that way. And so there was one community. There's a very, very big community in my space. So I became active in that, and I started going to sort of socials and became much more active in their Slack community and things like that. Went to a sort of a leadership dinner with a bunch of other leaders in my area, and just learned a lot from talking to people and understanding their problems. And then two more communities just sort of found me through like random LinkedIn messages. And so yeah, I'm starting to build a network of other people and other groups and things like that that are really going to sort of help me take that next level in my career. So it was good, and I probably would not have done this if I hadn't been sort of forced to think about these things. Well, not forced, but encouraged to think about these things. Because this is way outside of my comfort zone. It's very easy to sort of 5:30 rolls around, not get on that BART train to go into San Francisco, to go to a dinner, to exhaust yourself. Um, and but at the end of the day, it's worth it. So that was a little bit about that was a little bit of my journey. Was not just identified a skill, but where I really ended up was identified a way in which I can take my career to the next level. Because what had been working isn't going to work going forward.
Thanks so much, Wayne. What was the biggest surprise to you as you were going through this journey and as you think about, carrying on from here?
Um, that's a good question. I think um, it wasn't necessarily a surprise. I mean, I did know that if I went out and sort of networked, that it was probably going to be beneficial. But I guess the surprise was just how easy it was to go out and do it. And I knew there were people out there that had the same issues that I have, but like talking to them about those issues and understanding it was incredibly beneficial. So I'm not sure if it was a surprise, but it was definitely a confirmation that was very, very powerful.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Wayne. Appreciate you sharing your journey. Um, the last one that we have up here today is James sharing Ngadi's journey, who unfortunately had to jump from the call today. But James, can you please share what Ngadi brought forward?
Of course. I want to start by saying Ngadi joined us from Cameroon, where she would make time at the end of her incredibly busy days, literally 6 p.m., to engage in our learning sprint. Ngadi is our cohort international superstar in my mind. She's a founder of a foundation whose work is focused on empowering women and girls with skills development and entrepreneurship while fighting organized crime in their communities, especially human trafficking. Her work comes from a place of deep conviction and compassion, and she gives so much of herself every day to every person she touches. In her letter describing what brought her to the fall sprint, she writes, I will say it was fighting for others to flourish, but in reflection, doing so while forgetting to set up healthy barriers for myself. She started our sprint with a different intention, to give time and space for herself to flourish. Like others in the cohort, she engaged in the Flourishing Bootcamp and other resources. She listened intently in our group conversations and shared potent reflections and observations. It wasn't easy, but she shared that through the experience, she learned how to rewrite her own internal story, identifying the areas in her life that drain her energy and the boundaries she needs to flourish as an individual. To those of you coming in, she writes, make sure to take the front seat and tell yourself, I know nothing. That way you'll learn fast and come out a flourished leader. I'm so excited for you to read Ngadi's Leave Behind letter in full. Thanks, Ngadi.
Thank you so much, James. And Ngadi has been such an amazing participant across the community. So thank you for bringing that to life. Julia and James, I know that you've had a lot of time to reflect on the overall sprint experience. And I'm wondering if you could just take a couple of minutes to share what that's been like from your perspective.
Well, I could go. For me, it's just so. I'm always amazed by this, but once again, I am amazed by the power of the connection, the power of being vulnerable and reaching out. And the layer that AETHEON and this process adds to that is the structure and the tools of the skill building. Um, I just like everybody else, I was not sure what would happen from the sprint. That's the beauty of the sprint is we all come into an environment together and it's very creative. We have a structure, but we don't know what's going to happen. And I'm just so heartened and inspired by the way people took hold of their journeys, even though life happened. And yeah, and I'm really excited about the tools that Atheon offered and brought to the sprint, as well, just the potential that the tools that Atheon is developing has to transform people's lives and their work. I would say not just their work, but their lives. And it's really been a privilege to see the just the beginnings of what these tools can do in action. But most of all, I'm just very touched by how people showed up, with vulnerability and curiosity and care for one another.
I feel the same way. And what's a couple of things that stood out to me, really, I would summarize the rapid progression of the self-confidence of the building up of each other and of the individual that we saw in this cohort. It was fast, but it felt like it went incredibly fast. And each session you could see more light bulbs turning on, more confidence in the way that folks were engaging. And you can't manifest that by force. That's organic. That's in a safe space of learning that can happen. The other thing that really stood out to me is the power of decoupling, or maybe almost deprogramming the connection between skills and having to get a job for those who are looking in the job market, and the kind of dominant experience coming in of I need to do this thing to get a job. When that was pulled away, and oftentimes that happened, I think, through conversation in this cohort, when that faded away, people got to select what was best for them and got to choose their own journey in a way that you just can't find anywhere else. And I think that was really beautiful to see that reveal over the course of our time together.
Thank you so much, Julia and James. Now I would love to turn it over to Marie Gill, who is CEO and co-founder here at Atheon, to be able to share your thoughts and wrap us up for the day.
Yeah, wow. So I'm pretty emotional actually. This was a very intense and personal but affirming storytelling opportunity. So thank you all for your incredible hard work. I know what it took to pull this together from behind the scenes. So thank you, Julia and James and Gina, for orchestrating the magic you did. And just a sincere sense of appreciation and gratitude for all of you who showed up so diligently over each of those weeks and contributed yourselves and in the spirit of bringing others together. I think, as I'm listening to these stories and as I'm looking at what's possible, I'm sincerely floored at the connection to the flourishing frameworks that, I've been working on for a while. Matt spent a lifetime doing this, and Jen Marr, who brought together the boot camp. It just really strikes me at how seamlessly these constructs are integrated into this process and into this outcome. So it I don't know. I'm pretty darn moved, and I'm pretty impressed by the sense of humanity here. But one other thing that strikes me, and I'm going to put on my CEO co-founder hat here, but Gina and Mark and I came together because we saw that so many of these frameworks and constructs that we live our daily lives in are truly broken and really outdated and no longer serving the best of humanity. And so we came together to bring Atheon alive for the purpose of disruption and breaking how we think about serving each other and helping ourselves thrive. And you guys have done it. You each of you in your own way expressed the sense of discomfort and the sense of challenge that you personally had in losing those massive heavy frameworks. The scaffolding came down and you guys created an opportunity to recreate personal scaffolding. And I kept thinking as you guys were telling your story about how that is so much an opportunity for the world to experience. Think of these blessings that you have in this activity, and imagine being able to push just a modicum of this out to someone else to experience or someone else to share. And that is what gets me excited. That's why I roll out of bed every morning. I'm happy to take on the most incredible challenges just because I know we're able to see the outcomes through what you guys are doing. And I just, oh, very, very, very grateful for each of you putting that effort in. A little look to the future. This party is not over. Like so many things in life, we tackle very intensely one focus, one topic, one thing, and then we learn a lot from that, and then we go get a sense of breathing room and a sense of digestion and ingestion. But then you want to come back together. And I think somebody in this group said it at some point, but it is kind of like that end of camp experience where, you're complete total strangers at the beginning of camp. And then by the time camp's over, you can't imagine life without these people. Let's not lose that. So this core group, this core cohort will have a chance to continue and in an expectation to keep some level of continuing engagement on this topic, on your personal journeys, etc. Then we also want to layer in a new topic and a new opportunity to invite others to join. So in January, we will have another sprint announced. I would highly encourage this group to stay together for that next opportunity. It's going to go down another deeper level into a different topic area. And then we'll also have a chance to broaden it to a bigger group. And maybe there'll be two sprints that are running in parallel. We'll see how much I can cajole James and Julia to join that. But I think that, this sense of being able to thrive in ambiguity and continue with the clarity of flourishing is something each of you should be very proud of. You have role models here, and I think let's see if we can continue to take this spirit of excitement and wonder into the new year. So I will stop talking, and I will just let you guys know how proud I am. And I'm really excited because this just filled my cup to overflowing.
Thanks so much, Marie. And thank you all. It's been just such an amazing discussion today. And thank you all for sharing candidly your experience and the journey that you've been on. As Marie said, let's stay closely connected. Let's keep going. And we're here to support you every step of the way as you're on your own personal journey, as we're here together as a community. So thank you for today. We will share the video so that you're able to be able to have access to that at any point, and look forward to the next step in the journey, as Marie said. Thank you all. I hope anyone who's celebrating this week has an amazing Thanksgiving. I hope that everyone has a great week. Thank you so much for coming together, and thank you for everything you've brought to this amazing experience.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Wow.